You are welcome to another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. While during the days of slavery when white slave traders raided homesteads in Africa and took the strongest men and women to work their farms for no pay, the methods that were used to conquer the continent and its people have since been maintained by the oppressor, and these are still being used to keep the now free descendants of this infamous trade captive in the country they helped build many decades ago. The very same approach of using the black people against each other is currently being applied in the takedown of our celebrities, and of course many other African Americans that are simply not documented but languishing in the many prisons across the country, hoping that one day they will be remembered and their existence also regarded of importance in this nation. Back in the years during this evil act of slavery, the white traders gifted African chiefs and kings with worthless coins, mirrors, guns and ornaments in exchange for their betrayal of their own people, and these already corrupted leaders did not hesitate to allow the oppressors to raid the homes of the African people and take not property, not money, not minerals but human beings. And these they tied up with ropes and chains and transported across the Atlantic like cargo, bringing them here to till the land and work as servants with no pay. Along the way, they were beaten and forced to carry heavy cargo which they had plundered from the lands they raided. It was a season of horror and darkness in the lives of the African people, but for the oppressor, these were worthless human beings who deserved to be treated like animals and exploited for all the selfish gains. On our mainland, they were sold as commodities to slave owners. And these were crime families with father, mother and child that in consensus misused fellow humans in the most unforgivable crime of all time which has since gone unpunished. It's however challenging and difficult to comprehend when the very same oppressors now claim to be the ones fighting for the rights and protection of the same people they have oppressed since decades ago, yet using these alleged victims as pawns and targeting the most successful among us that could easily use their wealth to empower our communities, and pass it down to the generations that come after us. It's well known all over the world that many of our sons are currently languishing in prison with no real crime tagged to their names, but only for their skin color, and that even some who may have committed crime are given the harshest of sentences many a time over the guidelines ranges as compared to their oppressors. This is a strategy aimed at achieving a reduced population growth rate of black people in this country, and the impoverishment of the entire community as our wealth is continuously stolen from our forefathers before they can pass it on to us. And sadly, like the African chiefs and kings back in the years, our own are helping in this act of terror. A person like Kim Fox may think this is different, simply because back then this betrayal was not packaged well into a job in the effort to excel at one's performance, and hope for a raise or an additional term of service like she was seeking. She ought to know that the same oppressor then believed he had employed these African traders to help them gather and sort out the strong and healthy from among the populations, just like the likes of Kim Fox are now being used to betray the talented and successful among us. The difference only lies in the setting, but the oppressor's game remains the same, and sadly, the blind still cannot see, for they are willing to lend a hand and facilitate the evil process. We need to remember that it is not in the oppressor's interest to protect the oppressed and see them thrive. In fact, it does not make any logical sense to believe that a person who enslaves you can have your best interest at heart and find purpose in your excellence. We are talking people tied up in ropes and shackles and made to walk thousands of miles to the sea where they were loaded onto slave ships like cargo and crates ready for export. We probably would have already forgotten about this criminal activity from hundreds of years later, but sadly the oppressor continues to remind us every single day that we are descendants of slaves, and that we will always be the ones to go to jail for no real crimes. In fact, there is a way the government is not even bothered with arresting those who take our lives. We have highlighted this in one previous video release that spoke of a case mishandled by one Kim Fox, where a young man that killed his colleague in a street scuffle was left to live free even after violating his probation conditions. But when it comes to cracking down on the wealthy among us, there is no hesitation. If the very same laws that have been used on R. Kelly were not used back in 1912 to crack down on heavyweight champion Jack Johnson, who was only recently pardoned by President Donald Trump posthumous when it no longer mattered the most, we would probably give the oppressors a benefit of doubt. But the very same Mann Act that was illegally applied onto Jack Johnson's case was again used on R. Kelly, and just like in 1912, the interpretations of the law have remained vague to allow the judges get away with prejudice. Why would we now think that the situation has changed and our celebrities are not targets of oppression anymore? According to Rendon, I have always said this before, how I pity the black people in America who, on top of having to deal with general life matters that are already hard enough, also have to add racial injustice on the list. The supremacists are not resting, and these have made it very difficult for us to live a normal life in this country. You can simply get stopped on the road for no real traffic offense, and be subjected to a random search only because of the way you look. According to Theory 1, there seems to be some sort of conspiracy by the judiciary. I have always believed that justice did not exist for blacks in this so-called Western world. The takedown of General G.M.J. Johnson, Supreme Commander of the NFAC, for daring to encourage Africans to own guns legally, and more importantly for the land project, had so much to prove. That word justice is a word I have removed from my vocabulary when speaking about this country. I can only speak of injustice or other words or phrases, but not justice, because it simply doesn't exist here. We need to vote out these regimes of hostility towards our people. If you wish to take part in a live interview on this channel discussing any of these topics, let us know by emailing us on sashahnnewsroom@gmail.com for scheduling. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say. To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.